After 20 months in prison, Hitler was released on the 20th of December 1924 on good behavior. Now he dreamt that he was a natural successor to the great founders of the German nation, such as Bismarck. He claimed, "My time in prison brought me confidence, optimism, and a belief that nothing could ever shake me again." And yet, his journey through the political desert was only just beginning. Mein Kampf was a failure, selling barely 20,000 copies. Hitler spent much of his spare time in the Bavarian mountain village of Berchtesgaden, where he rented a small chalet. He met a pretty 16-year-old waitress, Maria Reiter, and they had a brief affair. She wanted to marry Hitler. He refused, suggesting she be his shadow mistress. He would ask the same of the other women in his life, so that nothing could interfere with his mission. She left him. He wrote the second volume of Mein Kampf. It dealt mainly with his project of expanding Germany's living space into Russia. Sales of the book were only average until he took power in 1933. Then Mein Kampf almost became required reading. The German state offered it to couples as a wedding gift. If it wasn't on your bookshelf, you could be denounced by your hired help. It was distributed by Krupp steel executives to their best workers as a reward. Over 80 million copies of Mein Kampf were sold, and it was translated into countless languages. The royalty payments were astronomical, making Hitler a very rich man. On the 17th of February 1925, Hitler made his political comeback in the famous Munich beer hall where he had launched the putsch, reaffirming his leadership of the Nazi Party. And on the very next day, an event occurred that would advance his cause. The first president of the Weimar Republic, Social Democrat Friedrich Ebert, the incarnation of the new German democracy, died at 57 from a badly treated case of appendicitis. Germans felt the loss strongly, as his government had succeeded in cutting inflation, and the economy was recovering well. Germans now had to elect a new president, and the swastika made its comeback during the political campaign. By now, the ban on the Nazi Party had been lifted, as it was no longer considered dangerous. In fact, Ludendorff, the candidate who tried to unite the extreme right parties, won barely 1% of the vote. Ludendorff's failure was what Hitler secretly wanted. It disposed of his main rival, for whom he had only half-heartedly campaigned. Revealing his political instinct, he said, "We gave him the finishing blow." The man the Germans elected as their new president was the other great war commander, Marshal von Hindenburg. Hitler had to wait. The Nazi Party continued to spread like a cancer throughout Germany. Its membership reached 170,000. Hitler transformed his stormtroopers into a private army. They looked young and jovial. But this paramilitary order was composed of brutal fanatics, thugs, and killers. Their new uniform earned them the nickname the Brown Shirts. They imitated Mussolini's black shirts, who some years before had marched so successfully on Rome. Another symbol borrowed from Mussolini is the Roman salute, the outstretched arm accompanied by a guttural cry. In Mussolini's case it was "Viva il Duce." With Hitler it became "Heil Hitler," long live Hitler. The SA uniform was created by a select team of German designers. Among the manufacturers was Stuttgart designer Hugo Boss, who promoted it in his ad campaigns. Hugo Boss, a Nazi Party member, also produced the terrifying black uniforms of the SS, the Schutzstaffel, Hitler's new protection unit, as well as the Hitler Youth uniforms. This all cost a great deal. The money came from rank-and-file Nazi Party members and from rich sympathizers such as steel magnate Fritz Thyssen, whose steel plants were ready to forge new guns. They also included Henry Ford, the world's largest car manufacturer. The anti-Semitic Henry Ford strongly supported the Nazis by giving them all the profits of Ford's car sales in Germany. In addition, each year on Hitler's birthday, Ford made a personal donation of $50,000, a substantial sum. This was how the Nazis paid for the vast spectacle of their annual party rallies. The banner proclaims Deutschland erwache, Germany awake. In 1927, Hitler chose Nuremberg, a Nazi bastion and a medieval city with a long history and a Wagnerian allure, to bring out the Nazi Party's connection to the Germanic warlords of the Dark Ages. He called Nuremberg his ideological capital. He also wanted to highlight the party's submission to the Führer, its leader. This personality cult was enhanced through the work of his personal photographer, Heinrich Hoffmann. Always at the center of events, a Nazi from the start, a virtuoso with the camera, Hoffmann was never far from his master. He took a series of surprising photographs intended to show the great leader's personal side, to win over female voters. In Hoffmann's small Munich photographic studio, Hitler, inspired as always by Wagner and fascinated by the theatrical movements of opera singers, studied a whole range of gestures conveying domination, which he would use in the first big Nazi rallies. Hitler stated, "The masses are feminine and stupid. Only emotion and hatred can keep them under control."
Deutsches Volk hilft dir selbst! Jeder soll helfen! Diesem unerhörten Zwang beugen!
Hatred. This was exactly what the SA was sowing throughout Germany, beginning with the Jewish neighborhoods in large cities. Nazi thugs openly bullied people on the streets. But the intimidation and terror produced only sparse results. In Germany's 1928 parliamentary elections, the Nazis obtained only 2.6% of the vote, less than 1 million ballots. The Communists received 3 times as many, the Central Party 4 million, and the Right 5 million. The Social Democrats came out on top, with 10 million votes. Yet in the Reichstag, Berlin's parliament, this 2.6% of ballots, mainly from rural areas, translated into 12 new Nazi deputies. They created quite an impact, as almost all wore their SA uniforms. Among them was Hermann Göring, making his comeback. Wounded in the lower stomach during the putsch, he had gained a lot of weight and had become addicted to morphine. It also marked the grand entrance into politics of Joseph Goebbels. Goebbels was hardly the tall, blonde Aryan type. He was short, had a limp, and suffered from an inferiority complex since childhood due to his club foot. However, his political cunning made up for these handicaps. He was a rebel against society who had flirted with Marxism until the decisive meeting of his life with Adolf Hitler. Goebbels then saw the light. By refusing to publish his manuscripts, the Jewish publishers had prevented him from becoming a great writer, and the communists were responsible for the chaos in society. He stated, "We enter the Reichstag like wolves into the sheep pen." But it was still impossible at this moment for either the public or the deputies to grasp the significance of this statement. The general public's view of the Nazis was that Hitler had no coherent ideas or policies, that he was an outsider and a fanatic. Most Germans were not worried. There was a new prosperity, a new sense of fun. It would surely take a major catastrophe for Hitler to have any serious future in politics. No one then foresaw the crash of 1929 and the Great Depression, and how conventional politics would be swept aside. And Hitler would never abandon his mission.
Wir haben ein Ziel uns gewählt und verfechten es Mandat der Volksrechtsblut bis ins Grab hinein.
As we approach Holocaust Memorial Day, Britain's Holocaust survivors tonight at 9 here on More 4. Before that, though, we continue to follow how the Nazi leader achieved absolute power. Hitler's Rise, the colour film's part